Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. And we are live on this Monday morning here on YouTube and across our social media channels. So if you're coming in to join us, good morning and welcome to what should be a good day for Nebraska football recruiting, as there should be some more fireworks on Monday, and there should be a trio of fireworks coming in the near future for Nebraska football. So we're going to discuss all that, all the latest recruiting intel. So before we get into it, please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section. And yeah, so Danny, how are you on this Monday morning?
Good. I'm ready for some early 4th of July fireworks on this Monday. I know people were freaking out initially, but it seems like June is the month where Nebraska gets things done, and that seems to be the case for this class as well.
Yeah, I think the calendar is always a little interesting in the way that it sets up, but June's been a busy month for Nebraska, and they could have quite a few commitments here over about a month's period of time from early in June going into early July. But here as we sit on June 30th, we've got quite a bit of things to discuss since we did our last episode, our last stream last week. We didn't do one on Saturday, so yeah, there's Devin. We have some Devin Jackson updates. Claude Mpuma is going to be announcing his commitment today. We've got Larry Miles this week, and then also Leon Noyle, the offensive tackle from New Orleans, just started trending with projections to Nebraska. So a few targets here on the board, but I guess let's start with Claude Mpua, who's going to be announcing his commitment today. I want to say it's like 5 Eastern. Is that right, Danny? Or does that sound about
That
right?
is correct. Right as I'm logging off for the day and have to go somewhere. Yep, that's correct.
And so yeah, there was a little bit of confusion because he had posted like I'm gonna commit on Monday, but he said June 29th, and so I just think that he had his date mixed up, which I mean it's easy to do this time of year in the summer,
Yeah.
especially.
Yep.
So if you were expecting fireworks on Sunday, that's why there wasn't any, because the decision is coming today. But yeah, and all signs definitely are pointing to Nebraska in this one. They started to um, they started trending. Excuse me, had a brain freeze there for a second. Steve Wiltfong came in, with the Fong bomb last week. Everybody else has kind of followed suit. Brian Christopherson, Brian Munson, just all the kind of national experts at this point. So Florida and Auburn were kind of the two teams, in the mix. Michigan and Ohio State, I think, were the other two, but Michigan's already landed, a couple of other tackles this week. So it really was Florida and Auburn were the two teams pushing. But if they're able to beat out, those programs, which according to reports, those guys have essentially given up at this point. So unless there's a big surprise late, which sometimes there can be in recruiting, you never know. But Claude Mpua should be coming to Nebraska as a 4-star offensive tackle commitment, 169th overall in the composite rankings, 6'7", 308 pounds. What would that mean for this class, Danny, if they are able to reel him in today?
This would be huge for this class because now you have an offensive lineman of the future to go along with your talented quarterbacks. You have another blue chip recruit, and you also outspent Florida and Auburn. And we've talked about it before with this particular recruitment. This recruitment was going to show whether or not they were serious about ponying up the funds. And I think should he commit today, which we both expect him to, this shows me that they prioritized offensive line, which is smart, and they were able to pony up the funds for Mpua.
Yeah,
They
and
put the money where their mouth was.
And yeah, one of my questions going into this class, was would they finally land, kind of a premier left tackle, because they had quite a few, on the board coming up here in Lincoln, with Kelvin Obat, with Claude Mpua, and so obviously they just needed to get one of those, two guys, and they were able to get them. They also got Waterman, Hayden Ainsworth, and Leon Noyle, and this is a guy that just because he's listed as a tackle doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a tackle at Nebraska. I've heard that he could play center, he could play guard, he could be an interior guy, could be a tackle as well. I mean, that's not from Nebraska people. That's just scouting wise. So with offensive linemen, they can tend to move positions. So I've seen some of that, like, oh, does Nebraska need another offensive tackle? Well, just because they're listed as a tackle as a recruit doesn't mean they're going to play tackle at Nebraska. So Leon Noyle could be an interior guy. But that would be, if they get him this week, I do think, or I guess his decision, I think, is maybe a little bit later. I don't quite know exactly when Leon
I'm gonna
Noel
look
is
that
going
up
to
for
be
you, and then we'll figure that out.
committing. But if he does commit to Nebraska, so I guess there was some projections for Nebraska, Brian Munson and Sean Callahan. There was a crystal ball for at 24/7 Sports, but I guess that's old. So you do have to sometimes check the dates on the crystal balls and the expert projections, because
Especially
sometimes,
with the merger coming up tomorrow.
yeah, and then sometimes too they're just old.
Yeah.
Whether it's 24/7 or Rivals or whatever, they're just old at a different point in the recruitment. So yeah, so that one, so it looks like Nebraska will potentially win out there. And if they do, I mean, that would
July
give
7th.
them July 7th. Okay. So yeah, so basically in the next, week, we could have 3 new commitments, for the Huskers in this class. And if they got Noyle and Mpuma, it would give them 4 offensive linemen. I think they would probably be done at that point with their offensive line recruiting. So what would you think about that class and how that group would kind of fit together?
I'd be thrilled. I mean, you got your blue chip kind of cornerstone member of the 2026 class in Pua. You have a really talented guy in Leon Noel, who Nebraska was trailing in their recruitment, but managed to inch themselves back up somehow. And then you have Ainsworth and Rex Waterman, who, while they are 3 stars, I think are extremely talented. So I'd be very happy with this with these 4 linemen in this class. And I think it would really kind of continue to add depth and show that the Huskers are serious about recruiting offensive linemen.
Yeah, and that would be another 3-star player. So he's 6'4.5", 250 right now is what he's listed at. So a guy that could potentially play tackle, a guy that could have a career playing guard. Just kind of depends how it works out. But I think that would be 4 nice pieces to work with for Donovan Raiola, especially premier talent. And then we should say last week Nebraska did pick up a commitment on the 27th, a few days ago on Friday, from Nayland Scott, which we talked about quite a bit, but 6'1.5", 200 pounds, out of Powder Springs, Georgia, 366 overall, 4-star recruit. So Nebraska's got 2 of those in the 2024 class, according to the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. 74th ranked overall. I know that some fans are still worrying about that, but this is just going to be a bit of a smaller class, so I wouldn't get caught up too much in the rankings. But yeah, so Scott, they've got Danny Odom at 253, Nayland Scott at 366, Claude and Poole will come in today at 169. So they do have some things kind of starting.
Let's not count our chickens before they hatch, but I agree that Mpua will be coming today.
Yeah, so that would give them, and then they're gonna lose Davion Bonwell Whitty whenever he decides to make a decommitment announcement. I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly what's going on there.
I mean, that makes sense because McGuire's gone. So
yeah, and they did have him for that visit in the spring, so you thought maybe that would rekindle some interest, but I just didn't. Yeah, so but anyway, so even though the class right now is listed at 9 commitments, it's really more like 8. So just so I think people should be aware of that. And then tomorrow we've got Larry Miles, July 1st, coming out with his decision. The 3-star wide receiver, from Orlando, had a really strong weekend at the OT7 with Trey Taylor, 500th overall. So just outside of being a composite 4-star. About 5'11", 175, had 1,200 yards receiving last year.
Yep.
So I really like this kid. Pittsburgh and Kentucky are the other 2 teams in the mix. Miami was in the mix for a while, but it's down to those 3 teams. Really feels like this is I feel as solid about Larry Miles as I do about Claude Mpou. I just put him in the class already, so I think that'll be a commitment tomorrow as well.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I feel really solid about what Nayland Scott can bring to the table. I think he's a really talented wide receiver. And like you said, I think Miles will be in tomorrow. So, I mean, the fact that he performed so well with Trey Taylor at the camp last week is a good sign. Hopefully, that's a sign of things to come. And this would be a nice little class. It's not going to be the biggest, and I know fans are worried about the rankings, but I mean, I'm very happy with how this class kind of came together over these last couple weeks.
Yeah, I think I think they've done a decent job. And we'll see. I mean, it's gonna hurt if they miss on Devin Jackson, which it's looking like it's going to. That was one of our other pieces of intel to discuss, is that about the same time that Steve Wiltfong was projecting Claude Mpuma to Nebraska, he was also projecting Devin Jackson, the 4-star safety on the board for Nebraska, probably the top target in the secondary left right now, I would say. He visited Nebraska during the spring, took an official visit. He was on the tractor with Danny Odom. Really tight relationship with Danny Odom, so there was a lot of hope and optimism Nebraska would be able to get both of those guys. He even posted a video with the hashtag of Flow Nebraska, which was like a visit recap. But Oregon has pulled ahead here. There's still obviously some time. I think it's July 2nd, July 5th. I'll have to double check. There's so many decisions.
I can look at that right now for you.
Keep track. I know it's coming up this week. So, I mean, there's still time for Nebraska to pull off something in the background. I mean, I say this all the time, that projections aren't commitments. Crystal balls aren't commitments. So just because a guy's projected to get somebody doesn't mean that they are going to. So Nebraska could still pull this one out. But it's looking like it's an uphill battle for Devin Jackson, which would hurt. I think he definitely would have been nice to get Danny Odom and Devin Jackson back there in the secondary.
Yeah, it would definitely have been nice. I mean, I was more concerned, honestly, about getting Danny Odom because I thought we had a better shot with him. I thought Jackson, not really a throw-in piece, but I thought he would have been, nice to come along too. But I mean, once Oregon, it's very hard to win a recruiting battle against Oregon, and he's a good player, so I think he'll fit well wherever he goes. And I'm just happy we got Danny Odom in, and that he's a member of this year's class and not next year's, because I think teams will be coming after him for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think he's a solid pickup. Danny Odom, I think, is one of the better corners in this class. So at any rate, in the secondary, you have Devin Jackson's decision. You also have Darian Jones is still making his decision on July 4th if he sticks with that. If he does, probably going to be Iowa. If I was Nebraska, my goal would either be to try to get him to delay that decision or, try to win him over. But it feels like if you could somehow get him to delay it until the fall, maybe you would have a better chance, which it seems like that's what Baldwin Sone is doing at this point. There's no timeline, or it seems like he's pushing things into the fall, which, I mean, he's a good enough player to do that. Not a lot of other players have that luxury because there aren't as many spots. I mean, if you can tell, teams are really pushing for recruits to, make their decisions. And I think they're saying, hey, there's not that many spots. We need to get our rev share stuff, yada, yada, yada. And then the other thing is, if these recruits want to get paid by these schools where they're committing to, which is happening. I mean, don't kid yourself. And Nebraska's probably doing it too. If Nebraska's not doing it, they need to. If they're not paying kids to commit to their school, they need to. They should be doing it right now. They should be paying kids to take visits.
I think they probably are with Mpua.
I mean, they should be. Hopefully they are, and then hopefully they are with Danny Odom too, because if not, they're probably going to lose those guys. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation right now. If you're not paying kids to be committed, then they're probably not going to stay committed, because with the new NIL clearinghouse and things like that, it's a lot easier to pay kids as high school recruits than it is trying to get these NIL deals through with as college recruits. Although I still doubt that commission is really going to have any true power, because I just think that as soon as they turn down any of these deals, it's going to get taken to court. And I think that they're probably going to lose, because because the players have not had anybody on their side to collective bargain these.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand how that's going to work without some type of antitrust exemption from Congress at some point. I don't know if that's ever going to come. So, I mean, like, people can talk about, like, there's the reason that stupid college sports commission that President Trump was talking about never happened, because it would have been worthless, meaningless. It would have done absolutely nothing. It would have been a complete and total waste of taxpayer dollars, because commissions don't do anything. They offer recommendations. We already know what needs to happen. We don't need Nick Saban, one of the biggest cheaters of all time, one of the biggest bag droppers of all time,
to
tell us.
Now that he's out of college sports, he wants to make it all fair and cute and flowery. Like, no thanks. I'm all set, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, not to get off on a tangent, but it's just if
Yeah.
it takes money to secure these recruits, and so I think I think that's also why we're seeing more of these decisions get locked in. And honestly, I think that you're going to see less flipping. I know people are like, it doesn't mean anything nowadays, which people have said that for years, and it's like for the most kids don't flip. I mean, I know that it gets annoying when a kid does flip, and I know that CJ Brona just flipped, but I mean, even if you look at the past few, there's been a couple, but it's like not more than like one or two kids flip in a class. So I mean, the majority of high school recruits commit to a school, they stay committed to a school. Like just because a kid flips, I mean, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to. And I think that it's going to be harder now because these kids are going to be locked in with money. So if you go somewhere else, like it's going to complicate things a whole lot. So I honestly think we're going to be getting to a point where you don't see as many flips, and I think recruiting is a little bit more old school because everybody has
Yeah.
money now. It's not just like, oh, you look at this Claude M. Puma. Like, yeah, Nebraska did probably go up and pay him to get this money, but I think the relationships with Rule and Trey Taylor and Raiola helped a lot because at the end of the day, like the difference between the offers probably is not that much. I mean,
Mm-mm.
honestly. So to me, and this is where I think Nebraska has a great chance to win a lot of recruiting battles over the next few years because even if you don't necessarily have, okay, say like you're committing, Danny, you're going to you're a top flight recruit, right? And Nebraska's offering you say $800,000,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and Auburn's offering you $1 million or whatever, or some other school, Texas Tech's offering you $1 million. Like, well, that might be cool, but which program is going to give you a better chance to reach the NFL? And that's I think where Nebraska is going to have a chance to win a lot of these battles. Like, hey, like you might make a little bit more at this other school, but who's going to give you a better chance? Where are you going to have a better chance to get drafted? I know Nebraska's recent draft history hasn't been that great, but I think it
I was
will
gonna say
start
probably
trending up.
Auburn. Probably
But
Auburn
I
right now.
mean, but if you look at a lot of places Nebraska's recruiting against, I mean, they've got
Yeah.
with all their facilities, all the things there, you've got an NFL coaching staff, you've got NFL strength training, you've got every possible tool that you could need as a player to get yourself to the next level. And so I think once Nebraska starts winning and those things start happening, that's how they can overcome some of these battles where they might not have the money because it's like, you know what, NIL matters, but you know what is worth a hell of a lot more? Being an NFL draft pick and an early one. And so I think Nebraska, even though I know it hasn't happened, but it is going to happen under Matt Rule. They do have an NFL factory brewing at Nebraska. We just haven't seen like the production lines, crank up yet, but we're going to. And I think this is how Nebraska is going to do really well in the future recruiting, in my opinion.
And I think it's going to start this year. Like after this season, I think it's going to start. Maybe not a ton of kids, but I think we're going to see some drafted following this season. And then 2027, I think is when we're going to see a lot more Huskers get drafted because, quite honestly, I mean, the talent development under Scott Frost was not good. And that played a part in it. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why, Ty Robinson came back for a fifth year and those guys came back was to get one more shot at the NFL. And, Matt Rule was able to unlock Ty Robinson's potential. And now Ty Robinson is with the Philadelphia Eagles. So, I mean, even if Robinson was a Frost recruit, for example, I give Matt Rule the credit for developing him. And Rule was able to show what he could do with Robinson. And now that he has a lot of these guys on the roster, I think he can do the same there too.
Yeah, I wish Ty Robinson was a Green Bay Packer, but anyway, that's
Yeah,
another
he would have been nice.
topic. Or a New England Patriot would have been all right too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely think we're going to see more of that, after this season. I think we're going to see more winning in this 2027 class. We're already seeing it. What Torrey Pittman was just projected to Nebraska by
Yeah.
Greg
What do you
Smith.
think about that? What do you think?
I mean, great. I trust Greg Smith quite a bit. I've been saying I think Nebraska is going to get him. I said it from the beginning. I don't see him leaving the state. I honestly don't. I mean, maybe like I said, if he's just like determined to leave Nebraska, he just doesn't want to play in Nebraska. Like if it's something like that, then yeah, sure. But most of the time, I mean, you look at Carter Nelson. I know Malachi Coleman didn't work out, but Rule still beat out Deion Sanders
Yeah.
for him. I mean, I'm not talking like who, regardless of what happened with him as a player and a coach, like he was a highly touted recruit in the state. And, he went head to head with Deion Sanders right after he got hired and landed him. He beat out Georgia and Notre Dame for Carter Nelson. So good luck anybody else trying to come get Pittman out of Nebraska. It's not going to be easy.
And even Danny Kaelin, I believe at the time of his
Mhm.
commitment, wasn't he being offered by Iowa, Kaelin?
I
Or
can't
was it
remember who. I think it was Missouri.
Iowa?
He flipped. He
Missouri.
flipped.
Okay.
Well, he was committed to Missouri. Yeah, so
Yep.
they flipped
Yep.
him from
That's
an
right.
SEC team.
That's right.
Um,
Which is no small feat either.
yeah. So I mean, and Davon Hall had interest from Oklahoma and Tennessee. I mean, so if those guys, I mean, when Nebraska prioritizes players early, they usually tend to win them, and that's like I said with Darian Jones. Like, Nebraska. I think Nebraska, if they lose this recruitment, they only have themselves to look in the mirror because they just didn't prioritize him very much. They offered him really late in the process. I mean, in terms of the other, I mean, when did they offer Jace Reynolds? You know what I mean? Compared to Darian Jones. So you're kind of cool on him and then you try to push late. So I think that that's probably a little bit of a factor of why they haven't, landed his recruitment. I just think if they had made him a priority earlier, then it would have been harder for Iowa State and some of these other teams to kind of build the momentum that they have.
Although Iowa State is cleaning up the state of Nebraska, which I know a lot of fans are angry about, but I mean they're prioritizing the South, and that's what they've done. It seems like with the 2026 class, and they're really being aggressive down south. So, I think although losing Darian Jones would hurt, I definitely think that they'll be able to grab somebody else.
I do think they're going to have to expand the board in the secondary because
Yeah, I agree.
one Danny Odom's not going to be enough. That's the only secondary commitment right now, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm blanking. So not that they haven't signed a ton of secondary players in the past few classes, and
Well, this
I
is
know
where I think
people.
like Larry Tarver. Who's the other Florida guy? Amari
Well, Amari
Sanders.
Sanders, Donovan Jones. I mean, they were
Uh,
all freshmen last year, so
Jameer
not that Donovan
Khan.
Jones wasn't from Florida, but as a freshman last year.
Jameer Khan. That kid. Uh, I'm blanking on the name, but even at the safety
Oh,
position,
Bryson Weber. That's probably who you're
yeah,
talking
there we go,
about.
Bryson Weber.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they do have like, I think they didn't prioritize because I think they feel confident about who they have on the roster right now, which is
Yeah.
not. I get what you're saying though too about prioritizing him, but I feel like, we just mentioned two names right there that I completely forgot. So
Yeah. Yeah, corner I don't think is as pressing a need. So I mean, probably only need to take two. But I
yeah,
still think they'll probably try to get one more. And then yeah, safety's a little bit because you're losing probably all your safeties this year after this class. Hartzog, Singleton, and
Justin Rhett
um,
is one that
yeah,
I'm
that's right. Yeah, that
thinking
he
about. Yeah,
transferred in. Yeah, so there's some other ones, but yeah, it would be nice to. That's why Devin Jackson would have been
yeah.
really nice. But and hey, you never know. You never know. I know it's hard to beat Oregon, but you never know. And Oregon's a long way from Florida, so I mean that's a long way to go.
Well,
You
so is
never know.
Nebraska, but still.
True, you're true, but at least yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of Florida players on the Oregon
Once
team.
Devin
So.
Jackson figures out Dan Lanning can't win the big games, maybe he'll transfer to Nebraska, where I guess you also can't win the big games, or he'll start a new tradition in Lincoln by leading us to a national title with 7 interceptions.
I guess I should, I mean, Dan Lanning did win the Big Ten championship, so it's just they made that like it's not that big of a game anymore. So I don't know. I think it'll be a little bit better this year. I like that they're straight seeding the playoff this year. That
Yeah.
other that
Yep.
other format was dumb.
Yeah.
And that honestly, I'm not sure if I mean Ohio State probably still wins it, but I'm not sure if the playoff works out the same way if it was seeded correctly. You know what I mean?
We definitely see different matchups, and honestly, Ohio
It's
State
like
was a machine. They turned it on at the right time last year, so I think they probably still do, but I don't think it would be as easy.
Well, I'm just thinking like if you're Oregon and say if you had to play like if you didn't have to play Ohio State in that first game, which if it was seeded based on ranking, they wouldn't have, and then you maybe had and then you could like if they would have played or if Oregon would have played Ohio State like in the semifinal instead of Texas, like maybe it would have been a different outcome. But I mean it's not that big of a difference, but I do think it will be better this way, although I don't know. They just need to get rid of conference championship games at some point
Yeah,
because I don't
I
know.
agree.
Feels like they
Well, it's
feels
all
like
for
they
the
aren't
money.
as important. Well, yeah, that's exactly.
That's why
It's
they'll never
always
get
been
rid of it.
about the money. Yeah,
But
it's
the
always
the
been.
SEC championship game on CBS will stay as long as there's money attached.
Yeah, and who knows? I don't know what they're going to do with this with this new playoff, they keep coming back with 16 teams and then 14 teams and then guaranteed bursts and then non-guaranteed bursts. Like I don't know. I honestly don't hate the idea of the 4 guaranteed bursts for the Big Ten, with the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
Like I know everyone's like, that'll be the end of college football. I just don't really think it will be. I mean, 3 or 4 Big Ten teams deserve to make it. I mean, the Big Ten is such a tough conference. Like, I just don't know how you can compare some of the, because like some years, man, Nebraska could have like 4 or 5 ranked teams on their schedule just from conference play. And you look over at the Big 12, it's just not like that. And it's not like that in the ACC either. So how do you compare those? How do you compare a team who played, let's say Colorado's schedule last year? Nebraska and Colorado played vastly different schedules last year. If Nebraska had Colorado's schedule last year, they're probably a playoff team. So how do you put that? How do you combine teams like that or compare teams like that? That's why, in my opinion, I don't think the guaranteed burst is that bad of a thing. And I don't know why. I mean, there's still a large berths. Like, I don't see why people think that that's like going to ruin college football. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the perfect scenario, but it's just, to me, and even within your own conference, it's like, I mean, teams like, if you have a really difficult schedule, it makes it, and like Indiana is a great example. I mean, I know they had to play at Ohio State last year, but they didn't have a very difficult Big Ten schedule, and that helped them have a better record. I mean, so I really feel like among the top 3 or 4 teams, the schedule a lot of times determines who ends up winning the championship. And so if you're talking about playoff teams like 3 through 6, well, it's like, should Nebraska really be penalized as like, if they finish 6th in the Big Ten, but Indiana finished 3rd, but Indiana has a much softer schedule, should they really be, I feel like they should have a chance to, play into that. And I don't know. I guess just that idea of having a 3-6 and I like it, but I don't know. It is a lot of games to play, though. I mean, it's a lot of football games to play.
Yeah, you talked about Ohio State, for example. They started their season, let's say training camp starts in August, and now they didn't end until late January. That is a long season.
Yeah.
And but no, I was just looking at the this year's schedule for Nebraska and who the potential playoff teams would be. So far, I have Penn State, and I was thinking maybe USC, but I don't know. Penn State and
I think Michigan has a better chance than USC.
Michigan. Honestly. Yeah, I was going to ask you about Michigan.
I would say Michigan's I think that Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State are pretty solid bets. Then I would say Illinois and Michigan and Indiana are in the next group. And then I would put Nebraska and USC in the next tier as like teams that have the potential to make that leap. That's how I would rank it. So, I mean, really, if you're Nebraska, you're only playing 3 teams in that list, though. If you're looking at the top 8 teams in the conference, you're only playing 3 of them, and 2 of them are at home, Michigan and USC. So, I mean, you're in a pretty favorable position there, really.
This is a very good schedule. I mean, this is their chance to kind of take advantage of things and make that 3rd-year leap. I really like how the schedule turns out. There are some tough games towards the back end, but at the same time, I like how this kind of shakes out for Nebraska.
Yeah, Michigan's just really hard to predict at this point because I think they're gonna have the best. I think they're gonna have the best defense in the conference. Like I mean, there might be other teams that are like Oregon and Ohio State might be close, but I don't think there's going to be another. And Penn State's going to be really good on defense, but Michigan's defense is going to be really good. So I think their running game is going to be better than it was last year. I think that their offensive line is going to be better. So I think the main thing with them is going to how good is Bryce Underwood? How good is Bryce Underwood going to be? And
well, it's like us last year with Dylan Raiola too. You didn't know how he was going to do, and he kind of went through the growing pains and the growing process, but he showed flashes.
Yeah, so it's like, is Bryce Underwood going to be? Is he going to play like Dylan Raiola as a freshman, or is he going to be? Because the thing about Bryce Underwood that like people don't realize, his comparison is Vince Young and Cam Newton. Because he can run. He's 6'4" and he can run. And that like he has that in his back pocket where like Dylan Raiola doesn't. And I think that's going to be I think that a lot of people are underestimating how much that Bryce Underwood's going to run this year. And so like when we're talking about some of these games, like Nebraska, for instance, like that's something that really that as a Nebraska fan really worries me because, having a running quarterback has been an issue a lot for. I mean, look at freaking Northern Iowa and Iowa last year. I mean, running quarterbacks are a problem, and so I think that he's got all the arms. I mean, there's no question. Like Bryce Underwood's has a more talented arm than Dylan Raiola. Like I'm not trying to piss off Nebraska fans, but he just does, and he's got this running ability too. So like if he's anywhere close to, like if he can throw the ball like Raiola and run, I don't know. Like they could be a playoff team this year. We'll see. So that could be the second toughest game on the schedule.
I think that game will tell a lot about where Nebraska sits and how.
And that's
yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say that's going to be where John Butler needs to make his money, because you got a true freshman quarterback and an NFL defensive court. Like that's where you need to, he needs to confuse Bryce Underwood into like an interception or two that game. You know what I mean?
And I think he can, because something Tony White just didn't do is have good enough schemes to create pressure, and his pressure packages were very sporadic and inconsistent. We saw in the bowl game when Butler, we've talked about it, brought Shavers and McGahee, and confused Boston College a little bit in their protection on the offensive line. So I think he can, and I'm actually really interested to see what he can do with a full off season, a full preseason camp, and how he can create those pressure packages.
And how do you win on third down? That's the money down. Like there's so many times the past 2 years where Nebraska has gotten teams in third and in long situations, and they just can't get off the field. So that's where I think John Butler can make a big difference.
Last 2 years, how about past 5 years?
Well, yeah, past the 10 years, but so that's where I think John Butler can make a big difference, is disguising coverages, mixing things up, confusing. Because that's the thing, you need to do two things to beat good quarterbacks. You have to hit them, and you have to confuse them. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not pressuring them, then they'll tear your defense up. And if you're not confusing them, they're smart enough to get to you before your pressure can get there most times. So, so against the Oregon quarterbacks, the teams that are really good, that's what you have to be able to do. So I think that'll be a good test for the Nebraska defense early in the season. And you know what? I think that Cincinnati is going to be. We're not talking about that game enough, because Cincinnati is not a bad team at all. And they're definitely capable of beating Nebraska on that first Thursday night if the Huskers don't play their A game.
I'd just like to win on a Thursday night for once, because the last Thursday night, Jeff Sims didn't get the job done. So,
oh God! And then that one route where we were up what 10-0, and then, or I can't even remember that game, but I just remember they had that
Minnesota wide receiver completely faked Malcolm Hartzog out of his shoes.
Yeah, and then that tied the game up, right? It was like 10-3, and then it was 10-10, and
right before halftime. I think it was right before halftime.
No, I think that was in the second. Maybe it might have been.
Oh, was it?
I can't remember. I just can't remember. I want to say it was in the fourth quarter, but
I was so mad
because I feel like we had the ball and we're trying to run out the clock and couldn't, and then punted it back to him, and then we shut them down all game, and then they just went right down the field for a touchdown, and then of course I want to say maybe Jeff Sims threw an interception. I can't remember.
You'd probably be right.
Probably just have PTSD. Probably fumbled it or something, and then then they kicked the field goal to beat us. So
I am really interested to see two things: how John Butler develops the secondary, because that's where he's made his money in the NFL, and then also what this offense looks like. First full year under Dana Holgorsen. I'm excited, especially with all these wide receiver weapons.
Yeah, I'm excited too with Raiola, a better offensive line. I think Nebraska's going to have one of the better offensive lines in the Big Ten. I would say maybe not top 5. I just don't know everybody else's offensive lines that well, but I just think you've got a potential first round pick at left tackle. You've got another, I think, NFL player potentially in Rocco Spindler. Justin Evans, I think, is a potential NFL player.
Yeah.
I really like Henry Leftoski. And then I think you've got some other. I just think you've got depth, and I think you have depth, experience, and talent. What I mean by that is some of the potential bench guys you have. Turner Corcoran, Teddy Prohashka. Those guys have experience.
Yeah.
Leftoski. You've also got guys, Grant Bricks. Gibson Pyle. These are guys that I would say have
both of those. Bricks and Pyle play this year.
Yeah, because they have that talent, right? I mean, Grant Bricks was a blue chip recruit. And Gibson Pyle, I think, was he was like in the 700s, but he's a guy to me that just it screamed tackle transitioning to guard. And so I think he's going to play like a blue chip whenever he gets out there. So yeah, whether it's one of those experienced guys or one of those young guys that has talent, like there's real legitimate depth on this offensive line. And that's something we haven't.
Torres. I liked him. I haven't heard his name brought up a lot. Houston Caína Torres.
Oh yeah. He's well, I think he'll be I think he'll just kind of chill out and be developed behind Justin Evans and just be, I think he'll be the center of the future. And you stick him at center, you play him at center, you just develop him as a center, and then you have him take that position over. So I that's what I would do.
3 good centers in a row, because I was very impressed with the job Ben Scott did. I like Justin Evans Jenkins, and I think Caína Torres, I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce his name in full, will be good too. So, we talk about, maybe they haven't developed at the edge position. Maybe they haven't developed here. I think they've honestly done really well at the center position. And that's an important position. Even though it's maybe not the sexiest, it's still extremely important.
I would say outside of left tackle, I think it's the most important position on the offensive line. If you look at teams that have good offensive lines, they have good centers, and it doesn't always have to be 5-star recruit, but you need to find a center, identify one, and there's lots of 3-star centers that end up being really great players.
Yep.
So and Leon Noyle, maybe he'll be that guy for Nebraska. Maybe they're like, hey, this guy can play center, let's get him. I think it's important to have that position, and Nebraska's in a good spot, I think, with Torres. However you
I got to figure it out because I don't want to butcher his name.
I think you're kind of I'm kind of the
Caína Torres.
I think that's pretty close. Yeah, Caína Torres. Yeah,
I think he's going to be good. Yeah. So anyway,
and I mean the edge development hasn't been that bad. I think if they, like Jordan Ochoa, I think has a chance, and he was pretty low.
There we go. I totally. You're bringing up all these names. This is why we have you on the show, because you're the more serious one and know all this, and I just add my 2 cents. But I totally forgot about him too.
Yeah, so keep an eye. I keep forgetting about him, but I think we'll hear his name a little bit more. I mean, he had a pretty good game in the Pinstripe Bowl. So, like, there was like it was like a month or it's like I saw he actually I saw him. I think Matt Rule took a picture with him, and I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot about Jordan Ochoa, and just looked like a beast. But Keanu Davis, I mean, so yeah, there's lots of reasons to be excited. So, all right, guys. Well, I think we'll get close to wrapping up here. So you can all get on with your day. But everybody, thanks for hanging out with us on the live stream. Everybody who hung out with you, all of our live viewers. Thanks everybody who's been watching us on the replay. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section. We'll have another live chat here. I think maybe 1 or 2 more this week. So keep an eye out for that. We'll pop it up on the schedule when we have it ready, probably Wednesday or Thursday, but we'll see based on everything goes. And then we'll try to plan another one for Saturday. My man Danny was busy this weekend, so we had a wedding this weekend, right? Is that what you said?
Wedding, and then I had to do 5,000 meters on a rowing machine before.
Oh, man. That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, no, I finished 54 minutes, 17 seconds, 3 seconds more than last year, but my arms were so tired, I just wanted to finish as close as possible.
Hey, that's pretty good, man. You haven't lost much in a year, so.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Once you hit 30, you kind of lose a step. You're kind of nearing the twilight of your career, so I'm happy I was able to pull a Wizards Jordan and still be productive, but maybe not like the 1990s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Jordan era Jordan was better with the Wizards than people realize. So
yeah, I feel like he gets no credit for the Wizards whatsoever. But
no, he doesn't. And you know what is annoying about that is they still had the hand check. He came back and averaged like 23 points a game after not playing for 3 years, and he took one of the worst teams in the league. They got 19 more wins, and he didn't even play the entire season.
And he was like what, in his 40s by then?
Maybe 38 or 39.
39, yeah.
But I mean, not playing for 3 years. Do you think LeBron James could do that? I don't. No. I really don't.
So, no.
Anyways, if you think LeBron's better than Michael Jordan, you're not a fan of this podcast. I'm just kidding, but I do.
Longevity doesn't equal better player. I'll say that.
Well, and what's interesting, one stat that I find very interesting is Michael Jordan. All these guys are like, "Oh, my Achilles is going to tear because I play so many games." Michael Jordan played 82 games 13 times in his career. You know how many times LeBron James has done it?
Yeah.
Once, one time. He's got all NBA when he's played like 50 games in a season. It's like, how are you all NBA when you've only played half the season? So a lot of his accomplishments are just
Mm.
based on his name. I mean, honestly, like he does a lot of great things, but like, yeah, if Michael Jordan if he skipped college basketball, which Michael Jordan has a better clutch shot in college basketball. Like the game winner he made that's a more iconic shot than LeBron James has had his entire career. Name one shot LeBron James has ever made that's been better than that. He had the
Honestly, the highlight play that I remember most is a block against Golden State. Not the shot, but a block. But honestly, and this might be a hot take, which we could get into on the next show or whatever. Start off with this, right? Kobe Bryant is better than LeBron James. It goes Jordan, Kobe, LeBron for me.
I agree too. Yeah, I would take Kobe over LeBron too.
I would
If
too.
I was starting a franchise, I definitely would take Kobe over LeBron. If you needed somebody to get you a bucket at the end of the game, you wouldn't choose LeBron. I mean, look at the championships that they won. Dwayne Wade was the guy in the first one. And the second one, they don't win with the Heat without that miracle shot from Ray Allen. I mean, I know LeBron had a good game 7, and he was good in that. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't contribute, but
no, Ray Allen saved his ass. I mean, let's be real here. Ray
yeah.
Allen saved his ass.
And then you look at the other one was Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving was the best player in that series. He's the reason they won that. And I mean, him and Anthony Davis were the same with the Lakers. He probably played a bigger role in that championship than he did on the other ones. So, but it's like he doesn't have those great moments. And so I just feel like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's an all-time great player. I don't know why people act like it's so disrespectful to say he's the second or third greatest of all time. Like,
I put him at 3, and that might be controversial, but
did he ever win Defensive Player of the Year? No. I mean, Mike. Like the crazy thing is, like during the 80s, Michael Jordan had a season where he averaged 37 points a game with the hand check in the 80s with like the Jordan rules. And like dudes were like clotheslining him, trying to knock him out of the league. And he scored 37 points a game. You know how many that would easily, if you took that to today's scoring, because the league
it'd be like
today,
having 70 points a game.
Yeah. Well, it's like not only the tempo, and I know the three people are like, oh, Michael Jordan didn't 3-point shoot as much as LeBron. Well, you know what? Michael Jordan, look at their free throw percentage. He was like an 89% free throw shooter. If you can shoot free throws, you can shoot threes. They just didn't make 3-point shooting a priority then. So it's like, never mind. We got to end this because I could spend like 3 hours just
Maybe I'll just do a stream when there's nothing here. I'm talking about basketball, or not that we don't do it anyway on our streams, but I mean,
I'm impressed all the people that have still hung around though, because we were supposed to sign off like 10 minutes ago. So,
but if you have hung around, you're getting some bonus content just for you guys. It's about basketball, and but yeah, hopefully by the next time, probably Wednesday, I'm gonna say we'll have some commitment recaps.
2 commitment recaps. And hey, while we're on basketball, for bringing this back, Bryce Williams didn't get drafted, but he did sign with the Detroit Pistons. So
honestly, I'm not surprised, just because it's really hard to get drafted in the NBA. It is really, really hard. I mean, you're seeing a lot of good college players sign as undrafted free agents. So do I think Bryce should have been drafted? Yeah, but I totally understand why. The margin for drafting in the NBA is, people forget it's only 2 rounds, and that doesn't leave a lot of room. You got to be sure about your picks.
And yeah, lots of 2-way. I don't know if Bryce got a 2-way deal or not. I haven't seen the reporting on that. It's a little bit. There's a few different ones you can get, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the NBA in the future, because that dude can play. I was hoping the Bulls would draft him, but
it's a good fit for him too.
Yeah, I think so too. And they've got a lot of really talented players. So yeah, a guy that kind of a sharpshooter who can do a lot off the bench could have a shot. Probably will be, have to earn his way through the G League, but he'll get paid to play basketball this year. I'm positive of that. So
another notch in the belt for Fred Hoiberg.
Yep. So, all right, you guys, we'll schedule another episode here soon. And thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Like I said, if you haven't hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.